Yeah.
Like, the moral of the story is, don't listen to what men want you to do. Just be gay with your friends instead. And that's the way to have a good life.
Hello, hello. Welcome to today's special episode of Emmi and Annie Talk Indie. We have a guest that we will introduce later, but first, I think we'll be talking about the news.
Yes.
So,
tell me about the news, please.
I will tell you about the news. So, one of the news items that I wanted to talk about is that Strauss Zelnick, who is the CEO of Take-Two Interactive, gave a big interview at a recent business convention that is about interactive media, but focuses on the business strategy of it. He touched on the release of GTA 6, and there was other news this week that apparently the release date of GTA 6 is not changing. It's still supposed to be at the end of the year, despite no real, big marketing push happening for it yet, maybe starting this summer. I'm not a GTA person, so I don't particularly care, but it's interesting to know that such a huge game is still on its way, despite a very long, troubled development timeline. But the reason I'm highlighting more of the Strauss-Zelnick discussion of games in the industry is two things. First off, he talked about AI and talking about it as a tool that we should use, but also in a weirdly heartening way, talked about how it's also overblown in the market and it's not going to replace creatives. Not that I trust a CEO ever, but I was like, oh, that is actually different than what most CEOs are saying right now.
Oh, I think especially in, I would guess that there probably are, well, who knows? I would imagine that maybe this is something that those CEOs say privately, but not in, these contexts of, a business convention or, when speaking to their shareholders, or at least I would hope that. So it's kind of nice to not just hear that, but also hear it in this context of yes, talking about the business of these things and in a public venue.
Right.
Making that kind of statement instead of just AI's the future, get on board or be left behind.
Deal with it. So he also talked about Roblox and was asked if that's something that Take-Two would ever move into, a model where contributors are the ones who make most of the content. And he said no, which I actually enjoy. Of course, he heaped praise on Roblox in the same breath. He was like, Roblox is great, I really admire that model, but it's just not what we do. We make guided interactive experiences that we decide and that we're not looking for other people to make. Which again is also heartening when Fortnite has also moved into a model of a Roblox marketplace, basically, where their contributors make stuff and then they do layoffs of their internal staff. So I'm not saying Take-Two good, but I am saying, interesting to hear a very different narrative from one of the big guys that we haven't been hearing from the others. The other reason I bring up Strauss Zelnick is because I actually recently learned a fun fact about him that I hadn't realized was there. Did you know that his son is the comedian Lucas Zelnick?
I know that name, but I don't know anything about him.
Let me send you his Instagram. You'll recognize him because he's gone viral many a time, especially for his crowd work, which I think is only it's fine. So yeah, it turns out the comedian Lucas Zelnick is the son of Strauss Zelnick, who is a video game CEO as well as the founder of a private equity company that purchased Second City in 2021 or 2022, or rather a majority stake in Second City. And Lucas Zelnick that same year was in business school and then decided to found a comedy club that he and his friends also performed in. And Lucas seems like a nice guy who's doing quite well for himself right now in that space, but I think that's interesting.
Nepo baby discourse.
Do you recognize him, by the way? Because I was like, I would not have put two and two together.
I don't think I've really seen that many. He's also just a generic kind of unfortunately my type white dude.
Okay.
That I feel like a lot of stand-up comedians that you see on Instagram look like. So they all kind of blur.
blur together into one. Yeah. Well, now you'll recognize this one because his dad runs Take-Two Interactive. So those are my two Strauss-Zelnick bits of news. The other bit of news that I had noted was that this week it was announced that Bungie was going to be winding down and closing Destiny 2, which is a shooter MMO that is not my kind of game at all. I have friends who used to be really into it, but then very soon after they made that announcement, much quieter, it was reported that Bungie's going to be doing a ton of layoffs in the Destiny team, even though they're pivoting right now to figuring out what the next big game for them will be. And so that's just something to lament. I know that the game used to be much bigger. I know that they also did a big narrative arc closing thing sometime in 2024, and apparently the company said that the narrative closing worked a little too well, quote unquote. So that almost sounds like an admission that maybe the higher-ups shouldn't have decided that they do that. I don't know, but either way, it's the rank and file that are going to suffer, as per usual, in an already suffering industry. So, here we go. Bungie layoffs incoming.
Yeah. It's interesting because I feel like there's been this shift to live service games, which Destiny 2 was one of, and there's this idea that, like, live service games are the future and like how we make money, and then also you constantly see live service games shutting down and like winding down, and so it's like, okay, I thought this is how we're making money now, is like not producing separate games but like ongoing live service games. So it's like, okay, maybe seems like it doesn't work that well, but
right. So which one is it and whose fault is it exactly is the question, but no matter what the answers to those questions are, the normal game workers are the ones who are paying the consequences. So I hope that things aren't too bad at Bungie when that actually goes through, but that's something that I'm paying attention to.
Yeah. I do want to, sorry to back up, but I want to go back to the first news item briefly to just talk about the like Robloxification of Fortnite. And we might have talked about this at some point, but I was making a poster and went like to grab some screenshots from like Fortnite's, you know, kind of landing page, or it might have even just been online, and how immediately it looked just like Roblox was shocking to me. Like the quality and style of like user produced experiences that are not like from Epic look just like Roblox games. And there's something that I think is similar to them as YouTube thumbnails, like because they're all like, you browse through them as like a sequence of things that are like, oh, does this catch my eye? They all use the same kind of weird layout that YouTube thumbnails do. But it was just very striking of like, ooh, no, they're like really doing the Roblox thing.
Mm-hmm. Is it down to as well like the character models that they use and things like that? Or another question, have you noticed that people are just taking a game that is already popular on Roblox or a game that they've made popular themselves on Roblox and then porting over to Fortnite? Are they just clones?
I think so. That is, my God, I would need to like look at it more. I would like, now I'm turning into like PhD student Emmy, where I'm like, well, I would need to do a robust, rigorous analysis of it to really say that. But that was kind of my gut. And also, though, a lot of games on Roblox are copies of each other or copies of games that are produced outside that are just kind of like remade into something else.
The bootleg version.
But it's interesting also how it then bleeds into, like, while I was looking at upcoming games, I saw something coming out that was like something obby, which is how usually game like platformers are referred to on Roblox, is like obbies, like obstacle courses.
An obby? How do you spell obby? Like Obbii?
Yeah. Obby.
Obby. I hate that. An obby game. Oh, man.
Yeah. Like, we already have a name for it. It's platformers, but I'm not... I guess I should be in touch with the youth. That's kind of my whole job, but... And I also don't mean to, like, be... I don't want to be too dismissive of the people who create games or experiences on Roblox. Like, Roblox is an interesting idea from the idea of, like, oh, it is cool that they have this very accessible game engine, which a lot of children use to create games. And then there's just all these questions of, like, exploitation and manipulative, blah, 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 all that stuff. But there are also, I know, people doing really interesting things on Roblox and getting into game development because of Roblox. So I don't mean to be like, oh, everything on Roblox is like slop and like a copy of everything else. I don't want to diminish like some people who have made really interesting, unique experiences. But also there is a lot of slop on there and now on Fortnite.
You keep referring to them as experiences. Is that the official word that Roblox uses?
Oh, yeah, it's... yeah, you're catching me in, like, PhD mode again of, like, technically Roblox is not a game, but it's a game platform that hosts what I believe their term is experiences. So it just gets a little confusing because people will hear Roblox and think, like, oh, it's a game. So then when I refer to something as, like, a game on Roblox, I end up just calling it an experience, even though that's not that helpful either.
And with that, I think we're wrapped up with the news, so we can get on with the show.
Yay! I'm Emmy.
I'm Annie.
And I'm Robin.
Wow. Oh, I forgot that I was supposed to say something else, but it's okay. This week we're talking about Little Goody Two-Shoes, but I was too excited about our guest Robin.
Which is totally fine, because the next thing we're going to do is introduce our guest Robin. Robin, games journalist and friend and fellow streamer and co-host of Girl Mode, also In Sequence, also a few other things at this point that Robin will be able to elaborate on because I've lost track of how many podcasts you do.
It's just .zip. You just didn't say .zip.
I just didn't say .zip,
Yeah.
but you've also guested on other things. Okay, well...
Yeah, I've guessed on other things, like Emmi and Annie Talk Indie.
Oh, yeah.
That's the most important one.
Right now.
Yeah.
So first off, welcome to the show, Robin. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for finally joining us. This is extremely exciting because the way we know Robin is because Robin asked us to guest on Girl Mode last year, and it has been the beginning of a beautiful friendship. So we're finally returning the favor. So how are you today, Robin? How do we find you?
Great. There's no tornado warnings today. There's no wind ripping roofs off of houses, which is what's been happening in Pittsburgh lately. So
that happened here too, except it was an elementary school in the suburbs.
Oh no.
The kids are fine.
Yeah. Oh, good. Yeah, I woke up to pictures of like just destroyed neighborhoods, which is very scary.
Yeah.
Yikes.
I'm glad you're safe.
Thank you. I blame
You're one of
witchcraft.
the survivors of Pittsburgh.
Very topical. It definitely could be witchcraft at this point. Mm-hmm. Now that we've played a game about witchcraft, which we'll get to, I'm starting to see it everywhere. Or maybe realizing that I am perhaps a witch.
Yeah. I've always had my
definitely got the hair
suspicions
for
about
it.
you.
Yeah.
I know. I need a haircut real bad. My hair is at the length where...
I was saying it as a compliment.
Oh, well, thank you. But no, actually, one of my siblings, they're always like noticing things about me that give me new complexes I didn't know that I should have. And
That's what siblings are for,
Gen
yeah.
Z.
yeah. Well, and one of those things was they looked at my long hair and they were like, how come your hair is so much lighter at the end than it is on top? And I was like, what? And they were like, yeah, it's like bleached at the end. And I was like, well, that's what happens when you have long hair. Like, the long hair is older, and so it gets sun bleached over time, and this is how it comes out of my head. And they were like, oh. And then walked away, and now I was like, my God, like, is that something other people notice when I walk around? Is this a new thing to be worried about?
Everyone's whispering behind your back.
Yeah, exactly. So, anyway,
Did you see
witch
how
hair.
the ends of Annie's hair? I'm whispering away from my mic. Did you see how the ends of Annie's hair are lighter than the rest of her head? That's so
My goodness.
embarrassing.
Can't a girl get a break? The answer is no. At least
Never.
not when the girl has siblings. So this actually may be relevant to some of the questions that we want to ask you about life. You look confused at this, but
Yeah, you're
it
going
could
to
be,
grill me about my hair?
could be
what are we
possible.
doing?
Not your hair, possibly siblings.
Oh, I
Because
see.
one of the first things that we wanted to ask you about, Robin, we wanted to ask more about obviously your life in general, but your gaming
Sure.
life in particular. So first, we wanted to know, what is your first gaming memory?
Oh, my first gaming memory. Oh, gosh. This is going to make me sound older than I am, but I think my first gaming memory is playing Pitfall on the Atari 2600, because my dad and my uncles had an Atari that was like hooked up to my grandma's television when I was growing up. And so we would go over there every weekend and we would play Pitfall. And I really love Pitfall, but I could never get across, for anyone else who's 1,000 years old, you'll remember that there's a part of Pitfall where there's like a pond with alligators in it, and they like open their mouths in rhythm and you have to jump on them when their mouths are closed. And I was always really bad at timing it, and so I would make my dad come and jump on the alligators when their mouths were closed because I was bad at it. I think that's my first gaming memory.
That's so sweet.
It might just be, I might just be thinking it's my first one though, because it was on the Atari and therefore feels old.
It's okay. It's okay if you're not. We're not able to dig through your memories to determine the accuracy of whether it's truly the first one or not. So
we're not going to do some like hypnosis to make sure we're getting like really deep in there.
Yeah.
I'm going to go clear by the end of the podcast.
Did you, was it mostly like you went over to your grandma's house and you would play Pitfall?
Oh, yes. It was always at my grandma's house.
Yeah.
I was just over there a lot and played a lot of Pitfall.
Yeah. Sometimes I wonder about like whether the way that like locations frame memories, like I wonder if it had been at your house, like where like growing up, if it would have been as strong a memory, or if there's something about like also going over to your grandma's house that kind of locked in that memory a little bit.
I think it's definitely part of that, yeah, because it was just like an activity. It was like everybody was there. Because I also had like the first console that I got, it was a hand-me-down NES from my uncle on the other side of the family, and the NES used to be at my other grandparents' house, and then it was like a Christmas gift for me one year because the thing was like 10 years out of date and he didn't want it anymore. And I don't have like any like as strong memories of like playing the NES at my house as I did playing it at my other grandparents' house. So I think that is part of it.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. I was going to ask what your first console was as well. So it's good to know.
Well, it was an NES and it was a hand-me-down from my uncle.
Wonderful. And did you have any particular games for it that you did like, or do you just, it's a blur?
I mean, I love The Legend of Zelda. I was nothing like that exciting. Like Legend of Zelda, Mega Man, the Mario games. Yeah, nothing too exciting. I think just like the ones you would expect. I loved Mega Man, though. I really like Mega Man. I think partially because it was one of those games it's so hard, you would just like spend fucking months trying to play it, even though it was not really that long, but it was just too hard to beat. So, yeah.
Did you ever beat it?
I don't know. I remember very distinctly getting to bringing it to my friend's house and getting it to like the last stage, but I don't know if I ever beat it. Okay, there's also, now I'm also thinking of a weird game. I do have a distinct memory from playing NES at my house. There was a Frankenstein game, and it was extremely hard, and I never beat it. And sometimes it will just randomly spring to mind, and I'm like, I need to get a ROM of that game and see if I can beat it. Because it just had such a weird visual style. It was so distinctly like in my memory. But that's the strangest one that I can remember, I think.
I definitely want to look that up because I've never heard of a Frankenstein game for that.
Yeah, it's so weird. I've never heard anyone talk about it.
It's also making me think of Annie and I both having played the Aragon game on the the DS.
Yeah.
Mine was like, Game Boy Advance, but yes.
Oh, yeah. Okay, it probably was. I am probably saying DS. It probably was actually Game Boy Advance. And also, I think Annie beat it just fine, but it was very challenging for me for some reason. Like, I couldn't get past the first, 20 minutes probably, and yet somehow it still remains in my head to this day. Yeah, I have a question.
Yes.
It's not that exciting of a question. I'm curious if have you been a gamer all your life? Was there ever a time in your life where you just like weren't really playing games at all, and like what brought you back to it if you did?
I've mostly been consistent. Definitely when I was a kid. I was very much an indoor kid. So I was playing a lot of games. I think the only time, like when I was in college and then when I was in grad school, there were like periods of that falling away a bit, but I think never entirely. Yeah, I think the biggest dip was like toward the end of college and then the end of grad school, just getting like too busy. So I was kind of like a console behind, but it was never like, I'm done playing these now and I'm moving on to whatever. It was just kind of like, I don't have time for this. But otherwise, yeah, it's been fairly consistent. I moved to LA in like 2018, and I think I did play a lot less while I was there, just because it was the first time I'd lived somewhere where it was like nice to be outside, and it felt like the outdoors weren't trying to kill you with weather. So I played somewhat less there, and then I ended up getting back. That's like when I started writing about games a little more seriously. Weirdly enough, I just kind of missed it, and I was working a job that I really hated, and so I was like, well, I went to school for journalism, and I've wanted to do this thing, but kind of wrote it off because it seemed sort of impossible, which it turns out I was right about. But for a period, I was like, what if I just tried it anyway? And that's kind of how I started writing about games.
We were actually going to ask about that because I was curious how you got into games journalism specifically, since you said you'd been, I think, writing as a science journalist at some point before that. Is that correct?
I've done some science writing. I was never like really a science journalist, but it was part of my work at a certain point. But yeah, it was mainly like I grew up reading like Game Informer and Electronic Gaming Monthly and a bunch of games magazines, and I love to write. And so I was like, oh, I could do this for a job. And then at a certain point, I realized like, oh, there's just like 10 dudes who do this, and I can't really get a job doing it. But I did still really love like journalism and all that. So I went to school for journalism and then spent 10 years not being able to get a job in journalism because that industry was failing at the time. I mean, it was honestly just like a kind of sense of like desperation that got me into it, where it was like it was the thing I wanted to do but felt impossible. And so I was doing a bunch of completely unrelated jobs, but that was making me miserable. And so I was like, well, I might as well try making this thing work because trying to do the safer route is not working for me. So I'll try this for a while. So I started writing for sites that were very exploitative and then worked my way to less and less exploitative sites, and worked at, the less exploitative site I've ever worked for a while. And then they closed their gaming section. And here we are. Yeah.
Which was a horrible mistake, which
it was.
Maybe they'll realize it.
They will rue the day.
And now I guess we're back to the situation where only like 10 dudes do this.
Exactly. It's come full circle. What a world. Now we all just have podcasts.
I am glad you really took the leap, though. Definitely relatable to think about doing the stable thing while yearning for something that isn't so stable.
Yes. I think, I mean, that's like so super, super common. I don't know. It kind of makes the impossible thing seem like a better bet or worth doing. Because like when you fail at something you didn't want to be doing anyway, it's like, what the fuck why was I even trying? I'm sorry I'm saying fuck so much. I know, Annie, you said you were trying to swear less when we were streaming one time, and I simply can't.
Well, now I have to swear less because some of my family watches, and I'm like, the children.
That's true.
But
maybe for the kids, I can motivate myself to swear less.
Yeah, I guess maybe I've heard you say that you want. I was like, it's crazy to me for like, I just don't think you swear that much to begin with. So
yeah, I don't think so either.
Maybe
you said it when we were playing Worms, so maybe you were just like getting extra frustrated and feeling the urge to swear welling up inside you.
Yes, that was a really hard game for me. Related to the game's journalism, how did you end up starting Girl Mode?
Oh, that was while I was at Inverse, which is the site that I worked for most recently. It was very funny. I started there before I like started my transition and everything, and there was like a long period of like me like being trans but not being out at work because being a trans woman with a public facing job on the internet is a fucking nightmare. But eventually I was like, I'm going to come out and whatever, and I did that, and finally was like, okay, I did it. I was so brave. I came out, trans woman on the internet, and then literally like 2 days later, Willa started working at Inverse, who's another trans woman, and I was like, oh, perfect, like they got a friend for me. And I don't know, we just
Robin came out. Time to push that paperwork through,
just like open the gates.
They were like, that cat's gonna get lonely all by herself at home.
Exactly.
Gotta get her a friend.
Exactly. Our boss did one time refer to us as like a bonded pair, like cats, so that's very funny. Very funny that you bring that up. But yeah, she started working there, and we like, I think both of us were immediately like, oh, cool, another trans girl here. We should talk to each other. And yeah, we hit it off pretty quickly. And at a certain point, I think I just saw her like jokingly on Blue Sky or whatever, just be like, you know, I just bought a microphone. Does anyone want to make a podcast with me? And I just like filed that away in my little brain. I had tried to make a couple of podcasts with like a friend of mine before. We did one where we were going to watch the original series of Star Trek and talk about like how sexist it is. But that became so depressing like 6 episodes in because it's like so bad that we couldn't continue.
Yeah.
So it was something that was like in my brain, I guess. And at one point, there's the weirdly the dark origin of girl mode is that Willa wrote a review of the Harry Potter game that came out because she was like, you know, a trans person should review this. And she was getting a shit ton of hate mail and like threats and like the normal shit that you get when you do that kind of thing. We had not like talked too much at that point. Like we talked a bit, but we weren't like friends. And I just sent her a DM that was like, hey, like, I'm sorry you're going through this. And like, just want to say like, if you need someone to talk to, I'm here or whatever. So we kind of started talking that way. And then I was like, you know, at a certain point, like, oh, by the way, like, I know you mentioned doing this podcast thing. Maybe we could try that. Because for some reason it felt easier to be like, let's do a podcast than it was to be like, let's be friends. So yeah, doing a project just felt like a safer way than being like, yeah, let's hang out. So we did that.
You became podcast co-hosts before you became friends.
Yeah, basically.
I get that. Well, because I feel like,
right?
I mean, we've talked about this a little bit, but like, I mean, obviously Annie and I were very good friends before starting the podcast, and it's something we talked about for a long time. But I do feel like our friendship has like changed and we've reconnected in a way that we weren't able to do for a little while, just because like we were in different cities. We don't get to like spend a lot of physical time together. And so there have been periods where we've like not been like no contact. That sounds really severe. But just like not been, I don't know why I phrased it that like we were estranged children or something. Yeah. But just like not been as in contact. And this has been a way where we like, you know, every few weeks like sit on a call, and a lot of times it takes us like 5 hours to record because we end up talking just like for 2 hours and things that we can't use and then actually start recording. But like, I don't know, I feel like it has like really, I don't know, enhanced our relationship in a way.
Yeah, it's good to just have that scheduled time. And it can feel like less vulnerable to be like, let's do a project, than to be like, I want to see you more, you know, like that's just
yeah.
I wonder how parallel players started, Robin.
I mean, this is the process. It was me literally being like, well, they were both fun to talk to. I wonder if they would like to talk to me more.
And the answer is hell yes.
Yeah, after we guested on Girl Mode, I was like, I wonder how we can be friends with Robin.
No, I was so nervous when I sent that message. I was like, is this extremely weird? Like, hello, two practical strangers. Do you want to like very much entwine your time with mine?
It was
great. We were so
us.
excited.
No idea how
we were like,
excited we were.
Someone who is not our friends or family is listening to our show and wants to talk to us more.
We were like, we've made it. We've made it now.
Yes.
Also, with Girl Mode, what about some of your favorite Girl Mode memories?
Oh my gosh. The one we talk about all the time is we did an episode of talking about all of the Resident Evil movies, which I think just started because Willa really liked them and was like, we should watch them sometime. And so made me watch them. And then we were very quickly like, we have to do these. These are just so fun. Just because have you guys watched those?
I've only seen clips. I know, is it Mila or Mia?
Yeah, Mila Jovovich
is involved, and her husband directs them.
Yes. The Ultimate Wife guy, Paul W.S. Anderson.
Yeah, that's all I've got. Wild that there's a Paul Thomas Anderson and also a Paul W.S. Anderson.
And they're at like such different ends of the spectrum of filmmaking, too.
So that's all I know about the Resident Evil movies.
They're masterpieces. They're great. They're so much fun. I deeply love them. I had so much fun doing that one. That was a good Girl Mode memory. What else? Jesus, I don't know. When we came up with the idea for the girlies was very fun. The Girl Mode Awards every year, which is like sort of an answer to the Game Awards being this really crassly commercial bit of nonsense from like professional self-aggrandizer Jeff Keighley. We were like, what's the opposite of that? And it was, I guess, two ornery trans women like coming up with categories specifically to dunk on games we don't like and people we don't like. It felt very like us sort of unleashed of just like giving away categories of like, you know, most obnoxious discourse or stupidest thing a developer said to a reporter this year. I don't know. It's just fun to make a show sometimes. I don't know. It's weird because like I don't know, a good girl mode memory, because it's all just like sitting and talking into a microphone, you know? So it feels weird to be like, this is a really funny thing that I said once.
You're allowed to talk yourself up sometimes, you know?
Yeah, that's what my therapist tells me too. I don't believe her.
Surprise! Your therapist is a guest on this episode as well.
Oh my God, that would be amazing.
And now introducing
Abby, what's up? She's the best.
She'll be coming on later to talk about. She played Little Goody Two Shoes as well.
That would be great. Okay, you know what? A weirdly related one was like meeting Willa for the first time in person, because she lives in New York and I live in Pittsburgh. So there was like, I don't know, a year or two where we knew each other without meeting each other. And then there was one point where I had to come to New York for a preview thing. I think it was when they were showing off Unicorn Overlord, the Atlas game. And by that point, she was working for Kotaku. So she was going to see it as well. So we were both seeing it for different sites. So I like stayed at her place and we went to see the game together. But yeah, I don't know. It was just really fun getting to meet her for the first time in person. That was right when, remembering now, Foam Stars had just come out. Which
I don't know if I know what Foam Stars is.
It's one of the 10,000 failed PlayStation live service shooters that came out that year. It was kind of a ripoff of Splatoon, where you had these like foam cannons and you shot colored foam at each other. But that had just come out, and Final Fantasy VII Remake or Rebirth was about to come out as well. And I had code for it. So we went over and I installed it on her PlayStation. So we played a little bit of Foam Stars, and then we played Final Fantasy VII Remake a bunch illicitly. And I don't know, that was really fun too.
Aw. So now that our listeners who didn't already know Robin know a little bit more about Robin, we can get into discussion of the game we all played, which is Little Goody Two Shoes. So if you don't know it already, Little Goody Two Shoes is an RPG / a visual novel developed by Portugal-based team Astral Shift. It was published in 2023 by Square Enix Collective, which is the indie games arm of Square Enix. The game has an old-timey German setting, and you play as Elise, a young girl who was raised in a cottage in the forest by Granny Hala, who found her in the woods as a baby. Hala has recently passed away, and Elise has become a maid-of-all-work for the townspeople of nearby Kieferberg to scrape by. She's poor, tired, and hungry all the time, and wishes desperately for her fortunes to change. One night, a strange girl appears in her home at the same time as supernatural happenings begin in town, and Elise is contacted by a being from the woods, a mysterious he, that claims to be able to grant all her wishes for fortune in exchange for just a few simple gifts. Elise must investigate her own origins, wave off suspicions of witchery from the townsfolk, complete jobs for money, try not to starve or go insane, and date a girl or two in order to acquire these gifts. And maybe get her wish granted in the end. The gameplay takes place over about a week in Elise's life, leading up to May Day and the celebration of Walpurgisnacht for Kieferberg's patron saint, Walpurga. Each day has 5 different time shifts in it, from dawn to dusk and then the witching hour, during which Elise can complete different tasks like going on dates, doing chores for money, and advancing the story. The chores take the form of arcade cabinet minigames, dates are in a visual novel style, and witching hour sequences have more RPG elements like puzzles and running around dodging projectiles. Elise has a health meter, a hunger meter, and a sanity meter, all of which must be maintained or else you die. Elise is also equipped with a lantern, which helps stave off darkness in various environments while being used in inventive ways in other puzzles. The visual style of the game is heavily influenced by 90s magical girl anime. According to the developers, some of their references were Sailor Moon, Revolutionary Girl Utena, and Cardcaptor Sakura. This influence includes animated music videos and even mid-episode title cards that occasionally drop. I gasped when that happened for the first time. The visual novel sprites are rendered in this anime style, while sprites for the overworld are in pixel art. So it turns out the game was actually originally developed as a short prequel to Astral Shift's 2016 game Pocket Mirror, but it quickly ballooned into its own full project. So we can talk more about how it connects to Pocket Mirror when we get into a discussion for the endings of the game, because that was the only real connection that I found. Mm-hmm. And then, speaking of, there are 10 different official endings to the game and 2 pseudo-endings, so I'm curious to hear from the both of you which endings you actually achieved. In an interview with Silicon Era in 2023, some of the devs mentioned that their team has roots in RPG Maker horror games, which I think really shows through in Little Goody Two Shoes. They also mentioned that one of the endings is a true ending, which is the one that leads into Pocket Mirror. So we can talk about if any of us did that one as well. We can also talk a little bit about St. Walpurga and Walpurgisnacht, since that's very relevant to the plot elements of this game. I did my own research on St. Walpurga a little bit, and the background of Walpurgisnacht, but also the only reason I knew that term before going into this game was because of Madoka Magica. So I don't know if that was something. Robin's making a face like, oh my god, of course. Like,
no, that wasn't oh my god, of course. It was like, oh my god, of course. It's all about the tone. Okay. Yes, in a nice way.
Okay.
It's like, of course you did your research on Walpurgisnacht.
Yes, so that is Little Goody Two Shoes. So I was thinking maybe the first thing we could address in our opinions and what I want to know from you guys is, what did you think of the aesthetics of the game? This could include the visual references we were already talking about, other like UI elements and things that'll probably transition into gameplay talk if we're not careful. But yeah, I know I, for one, was like very drawn to this style because I've watched most of the things that they described as their impressions. And then I was delighted when I saw pretty much like, not direct lifts from those things, but stuff where I was like, oh, it's so Utena, it hurts. It's so beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, visually it's like immaculate. I love everything about the aesthetics of this game. Even like the intro that we just watched, like you said, it's so clear what their influences are. In not even just like the anime style, but that kind of ending shot of the intro cutscene of Elise like wrapped up in vines. It's very like horror anime of that era. And yeah, in the game itself, it's just like, we can get into obviously more detail about it, but the ways that it shifts that style and the sort of the fun that it has with what the format of the game is, I think is really, really compelling. I'm always a big fan of when you establish a visual style and then break it. And this game does that a bunch, which I found really charming the whole way through. And the music is also incredible too.
It's not just great at emulating an art style that it so admires, but then also surprising the player with something new and delightful next for the shift. And I think I did genuinely, I hope my roommate didn't hear me, I genuinely like shrieked in delight a couple of like late nights playing when one of those shifts occurs.
There's a handful of sequences where there's like a parade of these creatures, and when the first one of those happened, I was like, yeah, I was like cheering. It was so good.
Yes. I was obsessed with the parade. I also really love, Annie texted me, and because she had started a little bit before I did playing, and she was like, I think when you play this game you're gonna be obsessed with it. And I super was, because I'm a big like Sailor Moon fan and like shoujo manga and anime from the mid 2000s. And while actually like very specifically I don't like the pointy anime style, like their eyes are very like point, like the just, it's sharp, right? Like, which it's not my favorite visual style, but the pastiche collage aspect of all these different animation techniques and like view, like I love the animated music video that it starts with. I love the animation of the title itself, like the ribbon flowing. Everything in this game feels like there's so much attention to detail on all of the visual elements, and that's why I wanted to talk about the UI elements especially, because I was so delighted by the way that they incorporate it into the visual style of like any dialogue pop up, like dialogue meaning like a UI element that's popping up giving you information, not just like verbal dialogue between characters, but any kind of dialogue that popped up has this ornate frame that has like motifs like grapes and other things and jewels woven into it. And that was like the thing that really delighted me the most. It just is, it's delightful, and I really appreciate the attention paid to those little pieces like UI elements that are often put to the side as not important, and like, you know, whatever, a frame for an element is a frame for an element, and like, who cares about it? It can just be a black border. But like, not just trying to make it invisible, but rather make it seamless as part of the environment and like part of the visual language of it, I was really digging.
Yeah. They also bring in some of the like storybook fairy tale kind of inspirations as well. Like those, like you said, those ornate kind of borders on there, and even fonts just feel very old school fairy tale. There's also even just little things like there's a part where on the map where it's like right after you come out of your house, there's a little section you walk through where there's like grapes. There's like a sort of ruined tower and like grapes growing in it. And there's just a point when you walk by where the grapes kind of come in the foreground and cover you up as you walk.
Yeah.
Just little things about changing your perspective and making you feel that depth just feels, it's just, like you said, just so considered, where it's like, this could be just a flat plane like everything else, but we want to add something special here. Like everything just feels so, they took every opportunity to do something unexpected, which I think is really cool.
I noticed that attention to detail too, even in the sound design and very specific aspects. There was a sequence in the witching hour where you're in a haunted castle, and this is like the first one that you do, and there are all of these flickering torches near you, and I was playing with my headphones on, so there's a 3D effect from the fire crackling noise. It was in stereo, so like the closer you got and from where the fire was, I'm doing basically, if you're not watching the video, but we do a video, basically doing the like flames on my face motion from the Clue movie, in case you guys are familiar. But it was really good. I also, Emmy, I think that when I texted you, like, I think you're going to be obsessed, that was when I first happened upon a mini game where it turned into the arcade cabinet all of a sudden as well. That was a really beautiful little reveal.
Yeah.
And I was
You
like,
told me about that, and I actually...
Oh, did you hate it?
I don't hate it. I love it visually. I actually don't know that I love the choice of it to, like, disrupt... I do and I don't, and then I really like that it gets mirrored in when you have to do tasks for this...
Oh, yeah. You do, like, a dark side
I love that it flips
later.
it, so it's, like, this kind of dark, broken version of this like very cutesy little arcade cabinet, but I did feel like it was kind of at odds with the rest of the theming of being in this like old fairy tale environment. To turn it into like this is like an arcade cabinet was, I don't know that I actually felt disrupted by it, but thinking about it from because everything is so coherent in that visual language, I actually don't know that I love that choice, because I feel like it kind of is a little at odds with the rest of it.
I wonder what they could have done instead. Like, if you were going to choose a more world-appropriate, but still sort of arcade cabinet style thing to represent the minigame, what would you choose? I'm almost thinking like a little puppet theater.
That would have been
I was
cool.
going to say the exact same thing.
Ooh, okay.
Like curtains rising, because they do have a cutscene where we sort of reference this of like some stop motion animation and like physical manipulables in this moment where things kind of come apart. And I could totally imagine, like, little curtains rising on a stage where it also is just a screen. Because I wonder how much of this also is due to limitations of, was this actually made in RPG Maker, or was that just the inspiration?
No. So they had their roots with RPG Maker games, and then when they made Little Goody Two Shoes, by that time they'd made the switch over to Unity, according to the interview with the devs.
Sense.
That was
I
also a
would
learning
imagine
curve for them.
It would be really hard to do this, and I don't know that you could do this in RPG Maker. But that transition of, like, having kind of a different setup of the overworld versus the mini games could also be accomplished by that, like, the curtains rising on a stage.
The only other aesthetic thing, too, I wanted to touch on was the pixel art as well. I actually really liked how there were the animated sequences versus, like, the pixel art of the normal times, because then when the animated sequences showed up, they felt all that much more special.
Yeah. I think the costume, I mean, the costumes are Elise's in particular looks really good in the pixel art, I think, but I think that's where the hand-drawn stuff really shines, where you can see the details in, like, Rosemarine's dress. You see all the little stars sewn into it and stuff. Yeah. Which is like, I really liked how they chose to depict those differently in the pixel art versus the hand-drawn stuff, but it was like so clear that the dresses were such a point of attention for them, which is cool.
Like, they have to be, I don't know, part of the draw of those like 90s magical girl anime stuff is that the outfits are so like not wearable per se, but like you want to be a magical princess wearing that outfit, and I think that they also served that design purpose in this game.
Like, you can get a sense of like the weight of them just from how they look, which is totally like a part of the appeal of like the magical girl in general. The flouncy skirts are a must.
I also really loved the dresses in the pixel art, the width of them, that like it looks like they got it to a point where they were like, okay, this is a Poofy dress, and then someone said, what if we multiplied it by 1.2? Like, it's like make it so it's so extreme. It's like it could not possibly be any poofier, and I like love that choice.
I'm picturing some art director in the background going like tossing papers across their desk, like it's not poofy enough, and then and the artist going, but sir, if we make it any poofier, it'll explode. Like, but they did it. They found a way, so it was good. And of course, the titular shoes. The red shoes, they look exactly as enticing, right? Like, so shiny, red patent leather, definitely a gift from the devil himself. Of course you're going to put them on. They made me think, actually, of the Red Shoes, the movie, like the Paolo and Pressburger movie, ballet movie. Robin's going, yes.
I, like, literally might go see that this weekend. It's playing at a rep theater.
Have you seen it before? It's amazing. You're going to sit there going, this is what cinema's supposed to be. I really love it. Especially if it's on film. It'll glow. Perfect. Emmy, you should watch this too. It's like a ballet fairy tale, basically, centered around the Red Shoes. A ballet called The Red Shoes, which features these red shoes, and which are sort of cursed as well. So
okay, I was going to say, is there a curse involved? Is it spooky? I'm curious... If you two came upon a pair of shoes that you dug up out of the ground, would you put them on?
They would have to be really special shoes.
I mean, depends how shiny delectable they are. I don't know. I had a pair. I was thinking not about that particular question, but as I was playing this game, I have a weakness for shoes in general, to be honest. And when I was a kid, I first off would only wear pink dresses. My favorite pair of shoes to wear with all of these dresses it were like my only pair of shoes were this pair of like pink Mary Janes. And so I looked at those red shoes and I was like, yeah, I understand, Elise. Like, you find the perfect pair of shoes.
Sell my soul for those.
Yeah, that you want to wear every day. Yeah, you put them right on. Okay, so this is feeling more like a story conversation at this point, but I also did want to maybe touch on our opinions on overall gameplay before we got really into the nitty-gritty of what actually happens in this game. So, as I described before, this game has visual novel elements and RPG elements, and one other thing. Oh yes, the mini-games. So I wanted to know your opinions on that, first off. And also, a very curious thing that I didn't even really think about until I read the interview with the devs, but the devs mentioned the challenges of making a game with RPG elements that had no combat. And for a second I was like, wait, that game I just played had no combat?
There's lots of death, but no combat.
Yeah, and then I was like, oh yeah, I guess they're right. Like, I couldn't hit anything. There were times where I really wished I just had a bat or something.
It's not no combat, because you do hit a fellow young woman with a broom, but it's not really in your control as a player.
Right.
It's
yeah, I was like, where is my broom now? So there's a moment, yes, where combat happens, or rather, you attack an innocent person
who's living in your shed.
But yeah, there was no combat, and then I was like, well, why did I feel like I was fighting for my life anyway? And I guess that points to that they did a good job there.
Do you want to walk through again, sort of like, I guess we can split it up by like visual novel elements, RPG elements, and mini games maybe, and we talk through the mechanics for each one of those?
Sure. So let's go with visual novel first. So there are a few sequences where you're going on dates, and that's like the most visual novel-y aspect, where you end up with really only ever 2 dialogue options, and you have to make sure you pick the right one out of those 2 for the date to be a success. And then also more visual novel type stuff when you're walking through the town and villagers can be chatted with, and sometimes they also confront you with the idea that they're suspicious of you or your companion for being witches, and then you have to choose the right dialogue options to make their suspicion go down. My opinion on this part of the gameplay is that it's way too easy to choose wrong, because the dialogue options always kind of pointed towards something that I misinterpreted as something else. And I wonder if it's a translation issue.
Yeah, I wonder that too, because they often did seem like, just they didn't give an idea of how it was going to be received, or like what the implications were. I think I love the aesthetics of this game. Mechanically, just about every element of it did not work for me. I think like both in those like suspicion conversations and in the dates, it felt almost random what answer was the correct one. I wish I could remember now, but there was one in particular, one date where it was like the thing that I was supposed to say for it to be a good date was like so insulting, but it just like once you picked it and it was delivered, it was at a completely different tone than I expected it to be.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just didn't, I could never get a handle of what I was going to say when I actually picked something, which was very frustrating.
I think there's an aspect too that I thought that they were going towards, which I really liked when I thought they were going towards it, but then I don't know whether they actually weren't or they didn't pull it off. But my thought at first was like, oh, when you're true to yourself, and like the way that Elise really is, which is like rude, abrasive, like incredibly egotistical, like that's when good things happen, right? Like that's kind of how I thought it was going to go based on my first few interactions when I was attempting to romance sweet Lebkuchen. I was playing in the Japanese and she calls her Lebkuchen.
That's correct. It's like German is like a sound on the C.
I don't think that's really what it was, or they very much did not pull that off. And so I was kind of a fan of that idea of like, this is a abrasive, rude young woman who all she wants to do is like be rich, and then there's this aspect of like that's maybe okay, and like there's these parts of her that are really valuable and add a lot to her friends' lives, and like that they need from her in order to kind of like to enrich their lives and move forward. But then that's not really, I feel like, how the rest of the story progressed. So then
yeah, I tried playing that way too, like in the being true to herself aspect, especially in suspicion sequences with the villagers. Huge mistake.
Oh yeah, no, they don't like that at all.
I started having to grovel and pretend I wasn't egotistical and conniving and all of these things, like so that they would get off my back.
There's nothing that can convince people that you're a witch more than being a woman with too much confidence.
Yeah. There was one dialogue option I remember too where they were trying to make her apologize for something that she straight up didn't do. And I think that it was perfectly fine for Elise to be a bitch in this situation. Like, she genuinely, there was no way that she did the bad thing that they were trying to pin on her. And essentially the right option that time was to sort of apologize. And then the quote that I wrote down after this, what she ended up saying was still kind of backhanded, and I enjoyed that, but also I didn't feel like she should have had to say it at all, and it was, I guess I'll repent for something I didn't do if that makes you feel better. A lot of the dialogue options felt like that. Yeah. Especially, so there's a boss fight at a certain point in a dream version of Kieferberg that alternates between like avoiding projectiles and then dialogue, and you only have like seconds to choose dialogue before it goes into like getting attacked again, or rather not attacked, but you have like seconds to choose dialogue, and if you choose the right one the fight continues, and if you don't choose the right one it's just over and you have to start over that whole sequence again. I fucked up on every single question. I had to replay that fight 4 goddamn times.
Yeah.
Oh, this is also the one where, like, it flips you upside down and backwards at certain points.
Yes, several times.
Which I also hated.
I was very bad at that fight, but that one was, I think, the most egregious.
Yeah, because I think the first option was something like, the correct option sounded like, I'm not going to remember it now, but that was one of the most frustrating, because it was like, there was an option you had to choose that what Elise meant was Lebkuin should stop trying to please everyone and just be who she is. But the way it was phrased was like, she should just give up. And I was like,
yes,
well, that's clearly not the
I
answer.
wrote that one down.
Yeah. Backing up to the, like, just to center the conversation back on mechanics, like, the visual novel aspects of this are the dating sim aspects, and the aspects that, like, narrative develops through dialogue, and your choices in the dialogue matters. However, like Robin is speaking to, there's a fine line between, like, you don't want the dialogue to, or the choices to be so transparent that you know all of the possible fallout from it. However, you need it to be clear enough that you actually know what you're picking. And it sounds like in this case, like, it just wasn't, you didn't have enough information, or in some cases it felt like it was actively the opposite of what it implied. And so that instead of being, like, interesting and you wanting to, like, find out more, instead it's just frustrating as a player, because it feels like the agency is not just, like, being taken away from you, like, it doesn't matter, but in fact, like, actively working against you.
Right. And I think that becomes a bigger problem too, because to get, like, one of the, like, good endings, quote unquote, you have to have a certain number of, like, successful dates, which means choosing the right options. And so when I got to the end, I didn't have enough, because I actually didn't realize we were supposed to be getting one of, like, a heart for every conversation, because I went for so many without getting one, and feeling like I had chosen the right thing but not getting anything. So I was like, oh, it must just happen occasionally. But because I had, like, been unknowingly making the wrong choices, I was locked into a certain ending, and the only reason I was making those choices is because of the weird phrasing. So it's just kind of like, there's a little bit of a snowball thing going on there that makes it really frustrating, where it's like, you know, I could go back and play this to get a different ending, but I have to literally go back to the beginning, because I didn't realize I had fucked things up from the start.
My one comment there too is that there's also a time aspect to all of this, right? Like, every action takes up a certain amount of time in the day, and the game takes place over a week. So if you screw up on a date, first off, that was your only chance for that date. Much like the real world, I guess. And also, you've wasted a morning that you could have spent doing something else. Yeah. So you feel so limited and constrained by that.
How constrained did you guys feel by that stuff? Like, did you feel like you had to always be doing, like, jobs and stuff? Because I, especially early on, I felt like I always needed to be, I, like, never had enough money early on. I was, like, always almost dead. And then by the end, I had, like, 65 healing items and, like, didn't need to think about it at all.
There was a real turn, for sure, by, like, the ending 2 days, where I suddenly was flush with everything. But I was so bad at the mini games, and we can talk a little more about the mini games. I was so bad at the mini games that I had just no chance of having money at the beginning. And then, in order to reap the most benefits from the mini games later, you have to have enough bread / hunger meter full to take Rosenmarine, one of your companions, on a mini game with you. And I, for a while, was too poor and hungry to do that. Yeah. So not only was Rosenmarine running around town ruining our reputations because she can't keep her mouth shut about the supernatural stuff we're doing, I still was not earning enough money in the minigames to have resources.
Again, it's just like real life. Yeah. Sometimes you just want to hang out with your friends, but you're too poor and hungry and have to work all day instead.
This, however, might be a skill issue on account of if I just hadn't screwed up, like, the rat kiss game with the children.
That fucking rat game is so hard.
I just avoided it. After that, I was like, I'm ass at this, and I'm pretty good at the apple one and the log cutting one, and I'm just going to run with those.
I was a god at log cutting.
Things.
Those are the two that I did too. The apples and the log cutting. It was good. Everything else, no. These chickens can fuck off.
Okay. 2 things about it. One, I don't remember what my first thing I was going to say. Oh, yes. Going back to the hearts, I also ran into this issue for a different reason. We discovered partway through that we were all romancing Lebkuchen.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was like, I'm going to divert so that we can have a diversity of gameplay experiences. I'm going to divert and try to romance Rose and Marine. But the thing is, if you miss out on one of those early dates, you can't, like, return to it. Like, you can't. I assumed that I would be able to divert and, like, build up my hearts, but there's just straight up never the option to. And so I just got an ass ending because I, like, couldn't make it any further. But by that point, I didn't have a save early enough to, like, go all the way back to the beginning. Yeah. So I did start a second playthrough. My other thing that I was thinking about is I actually really like the tension of how hard it is to earn money and buy things at the beginning. I actually think it's like a triumph in like balance and costing. Like I think it's very, very well done, where the food items, the healing items are all like just out of reach. You have enough to get one or two, maybe, and you really have to think about which one you get. And I think that the fact that those all work together and have a really compelling tension, I think is like really well done.
My God, it doesn't help either that little hussy Muffy starts garnishing your wages eventually, because you start getting blackmailed by one of the other townspeople who's always hungry. So every day she asks for a different like snack that escalates in price. So you also have to make sure that you've got that in your back pocket.
Yeah.
Along with not starving yourself.
Right.
I was extremely grateful, and maybe this is why I wanted to date her out of the three options. Extremely grateful that Lebkuchen gives you bread at the end of the day. Really needed that handout.
Yeah, I would have starved without that. But yeah, I do like how it does feel like you really do need to like scrape to get by. I found that frustrating because of the other like the romance and heart stuff on top of it made it so that, like you said, this first couple days I could only go on one of those dates, which meant I was unknowingly locking myself out of the other, like even talking to the other girls for the rest of the playthrough. Like even if they're, you could only have a romance path with one person, like being able to like hang out with them would have been nice. But I just I never got to speak to Freya for like after the first day, and Rose and Marine I would only see in those like scripted scenes where she was around, which I thought was really frustrating because I don't know, I wanted to like try all of them and then be like, which of those did I like the most? Which seems like the most compelling story? But by that time I was already locked out because I had like skipped, someone on one day to date somebody else, which was just a little frustrating.
Like, the issue isn't the tension necessarily, but the fact that because of that tension, you lose out on opportunities to, like, explore and see more. And I get that clearly the intention of this game is to have multiple playthroughs because you have in your little wardrobe, like, a list of all the endings you've unlocked. So, like, clearly it's intended for multiple playthroughs, but for me, it was just, like, it's a little too long, and there are segments of it that are a little too frustrating for me to want to do that.
Yep.
So those things are all also kind of in tension with each other in a way that wasn't
You're being
the most
so
satisfying for me.
Nice. A little too frustrating. I genuinely, I will come out and say I'm not against the game fully. There's so many things about it that I really liked it, but I do not want to play this again. Like, it was too frustrating gameplay wise to make even the like delightful aesthetic and the temptingness of unlocking other endings made me go through it again.
By like the second or third witching hour, I was like, I can't play this again. Like, it's too... It's too frustrating.
This is like pulling teeth for me to get this done for this episode, and that's like never how I want to feel about something. Yeah.
There was like one of the early ones is like that when the chariot is chasing you.
Oh, yeah.
I must have done that 100 times. It's like a 10-second sequence, and it took me like an hour to beat. Like, it was so frustrating.
I think I texted you about this, Robin, because I was also dying in that same sequence, and I was down to half a heart, no acorns, no grapes, nothing to get me through. It was just like instant death if I messed up on anything.
I will say, the going back to the visual elements, the scenes, like the title card, basically, when you die, is so fucking sick.
Oh, yeah, it's really good.
It's so good.
It's this, like, broken, like, music box porcelain doll.
Yeah. It's great. And I mean, even those sequences, like the visuals are fantastic. Like that thing that is chasing you is so terrifying and awful. Like there's especially one of the very last sequences of those involves a tree. There's a person and a tree, and that sequence I had to watch a couple times because I kept dying, but I was happy to watch it over and over because it was just gorgeous. It was, again, that kind of mix of probably some like very low poly 3D model along with the pixel stuff. Like it just looked so like otherworldly and fantastic. There's a game that came out last year, I think, called Demon School. It does something similar where it's like pixel art, but for the bosses they are like 3D like kind of low poly 3D renders, which was specifically done to give it the feeling of like something that is not of this world. And I think this game does a similar thing really, really effectively. It's just unfortunate that often those sequences are mechanically extremely frustrating to play through.
Yeah, it just makes me wish I could transplant the whole art team to an entirely differently designed and narrative directed game to let all of that really shine.
Yeah. It does feel like, and I don't know if this is the case at all, obviously, but I do get the feeling sometimes when I'm playing more narratively forward games that are not strictly visual novels that do have this kind of like mechanical RPG layer, it feels like developers sometimes almost feel obligated to throw in mechanics that aren't really serving the game, like to make it more gamey. And that was kind of the feeling that I got with a lot of these sequences, because like the puzzles weren't that interesting and the chase sequences or whatever were quite bad, and it just felt like something that was like, this doesn't help the game at all. And that's probably how with horror a lot of the time too, though, which is you want to have sequences where failure is possible and like likely to build tension, but at a certain point, once you die enough times, it stops being scary. It just starts being frustrating because you know there's really no consequences for death other than doing the same thing over and over, and that's not scary. It's just kind of annoying. And I really ran into that with this game.
It's like, yeah, the crow prince that kills you. We've all seen it.
Right.
It's
play something new. Yeah.
Yeah, I think thinking more critically about the mini games than I would have otherwise, because it comes up a lot in the class that I TA for, where the instructor's always asking them, where's the fun in this game? And and you can always have a conversation about like, well, do games always need to be fun or like blah blah blah. But for the level of game design, as in like very introductory that they're at, I think it's totally fair to be like, where's the fun? And a lot of times they're like, well, there'll be like mini games. And it's like, okay, so like you're offloading all of the fun into these mini games that you're also not designing out either. Although I do think like I like the apple mini game in this game. I think it's fun. I like the log cutting mini game. But the point of that though is that like if you're offloading it into the mini games, it means that the core mechanics of your game aren't sound, if like that's where you're leaning on the fun. But I actually think the fun in this game is the visual novel aspects and the narrative developing through the dialogue, as well as the tension of managing like your money and your supplies. Like those worked pretty well for me. So then, like you were saying, Robin, I think like adding in these other kind of, even if they're not combat, but like action sequences was just kind of unnecessary and not really an addition to it, and really a detraction.
Yeah, totally.
From the game, in my experience.
I would say they aren't unnecessary because I liked, like, it was a horror game. I think it was a good way to express that atmosphere and make your heart pound. I do just wish they were better designed and less irritating.
But it's also like the fun in this game is walking around and seeing the gorgeous like backgrounds, or having just the random conversations you would have with people in town were really fun. Like I really enjoyed walking around just seeing what people have to say today. Like who's going to be weird to me and call me a witch to my face. And like that stuff is really enjoyable. And I think that's what makes all of the witching hour sequences often feel so incongruous, because it's like, this isn't, I mean, while they are still really gorgeous and there's some cool story stuff happening there, it's like the thing I'm here in this game for is never like a block pushing puzzle, like that's just not part of it.
It's a shame.
Yeah,
it's a damn shame, really.
I think there's a big part of it too that's like, it's about the exploration of both the environment and the choices. And so like we were talking about earlier, getting locked out of those choices, locked out of these dates, is really diminishing the fun of it, because that was the thing that was enjoyable in the first place, and you're losing out on those opportunities.
Yeah. Where I think there is one point where you're collecting these various like talismans to fulfill this, this pact. And one of them, you have to like get a sheaf of wheat and turn it into bread. And, there's all this stuff.
It's very Catholic.
It's so Catholic. But that whole sequence you can kind of miss. Like, it's something you have to do throughout your day, is find the way into this mill to make this bread. And that is a thing that is missable, that can lock you out of certain things happening in the end.
You can entirely miss that?
You can just totally not do that day. And that, I think, is really effective, because it is just about you understanding the story that's being told and following the steps to make it happen. Whereas I think the romance stuff feels like you weren't, at least I felt like I wasn't really given quite enough information to know what I was supposed to be doing. Whereas this one was like, they told me what to do, and now it's up to me to go do it. So I did find that helpful.
It sounds like we just even needed more indicators of when a date was a success or not. Like, and it tells you when it's a success, but they didn't have an indicator for when you'd failed. So, like, absence versus a notification.
I do think that there was a tutorial that was like, you'll get a heart for every successful date. But I don't know. I forgot. I played this game over a week. Give me a break. And again, in the game's defense, there is a cute little thing where you can go to the mailbox at your house and read tutorials again. So it's my fault, is what I'm saying.
Sometimes we do just gotta get good, I guess.
Have you tried just not getting hit?
Also, I feel like when you have to learn a mechanic through reading, and then like to refamiliarize with it, you have to like go read it again. I think is like, I don't know, it's not the worst onboarding you could possibly have, but it's also like, I think there are better options that kind of work with players a little bit more, rather than like stopping them in their tracks. And so I think it's just like a really hard balance to hit. But yeah, I needed Lebkuin to be like, that was a bad time. I did not have fun tonight. Because there just were times where I didn't realize that was a bad date, that it didn't work, which maybe explains a lot about my personal life as well. But it just didn't. I just couldn't tell sometimes.
Everybody needs to communicate more clearly.
Yeah. Yes. That's what we're learning from this game.
I'm curious if either of you were able to follow through on the full storyline of the notes.
Yes, I was. But it sounds like we're getting more into a story discussion.
Yeah. I tried to back us up to mechanics, and then we lost track of it, so let's just go full steam ahead on story.
Let's talk about the story. And in which case, since we're now deep into this episode, I'll give people an overview again. But you're Elise. You're kind of a jerk, but in my opinion, it's justified. Because you're a poor orphan living alone in the woods, your grandma just died, you live next to this town who you do chores for, and everyone in the town is so mean to you, and all you want is for your life to improve when things start moving. A strange entity in the woods starts promising you riches in return for a few simple things, which are bread that represents your flesh, wine that represents your blood, again, the Catholicness of it all, and then good company, which is like bringing a successful love interest, and you trade these things and then you'll get your wishes granted. And then there's also the appearance of Rosenmarine, a little witch in the woods who says that she's fated to help you do this. So she follows you around and helps you, like, she's not very helpful, but helps you achieve your dreams.
She and Flock show up.
She and Flock, her little one-eyed goat.
Yeah, maybe menacing goat.
Her beautiful little evil goat.
A little evil goat. They show up and they become your like main companion. She lives in your house. She makes you grape soup for dinner the first night. Yeah. I wrote that down with 2 question marks next to it because it didn't make me want to date her, I will say. Yeah. from the get-go. So
most of the food in this game looks good. I really wanted to make Lebkuin before we recorded this, but I just didn't get to it.
Some little cookies. And the name, again, the fact that her name is just basically like sweet cakes is... because that's like specifically what it what it translates to is really funny to me.
Sweet
Hey,
cakes.
sweet cakes. Let's go to the woods.
And have some good company. But yes, so all of the gameplay is geared toward achieving those items because in the end you want to offer them to him, capital H, in the woods to get your wishes granted. So that's also partly why you're even romancing somebody. And then there's also like mysterious occurrences in town that are clearly happening because you're consorting with him in the woods. And then separately, you're finding all of these notes that show that someone in town is investigating you and your past and something that maybe Granny Holla did to find you in the woods as a baby. And so there's like a trail of clues for that to follow. And then also everybody talking about Saint Walpurga and a witch in the woods and how those things are connected. Where do we go from here?
There's some kind of dichotomy that I really wanted to understand better, but it would have required me to do another full playthrough. Between, there's like him, capital H, him in the woods, and then there's this indication that there's maybe this more truthful pagan, like female woman deity that is contrasted with him. Him is clearly like the devil, right? But I wanted so much more information about this, and then ultimately was just locked out of getting it, and it felt really just like displeasing because I'm like, I wonder if I would have changed my whole tune about this game if I had all of the information and been like, wow, all of this was like intentional or something. I don't know, or was reinforcing the ultimate narrative, but I don't know.
If it helps. Robin, did you follow all of the clues to figure out what was going on with that thread?
I figured out what was going on and then got locked out of the last step to get the ending for it.
I almost got locked out of that too before I was like, I have this key and I know it'll open something and I want to do it. So I looked up, like I didn't come to it naturally. I looked up like, what do I have to do, and did that last step. But yeah, so I mean, if it helps, no, it wouldn't have like illuminated too much more about your choices.
It wouldn't have, but I do think it's really interesting.
It's really interesting, important
the thing
background.
that it wraps up.
Okay, tell me about it then, please.
Basically, like, Walpurga is the forest. It is like the Witch of the Woods is the woods, and it is this like pagan animistic force that just exists out there that is sort of, it is opposing him, like, you know, it's not like in league with the devil or whatever, but is also very possessive of you. The whole idea is, I guess, huge spoilers for this entire game. The beginning of the game is you learn like Elise was found in the woods by Holla, who becomes her grandma. It turns out that Holla sacrificed her husband to the woods in order for the woods to give birth to Elise so she could have a daughter. And so Walpurga, the woods, is trying to reclaim you because you are like, were birthed by the woods itself. So it's not like trying to help you. It's just has a different claim on you than the devil does.
And not just reclaim you. So Elise, you, the player, are the daughter of the woods and the devil. Like, it's both together. And Walpurga has been trying to reclaim you, not just to be like, my daughter, come back to the woods. It's to take over your body. Yeah. And have a human body out there.
Yeah, that was like the ending that not the first ending that I got. Maybe it was. I like rerounded, did a couple different like failure endings, basically, of like, I didn't have good company, so I'm like gonna try each of the girls, and then I'm gonna try like not having it at all. And I did get an ending where it's like, I've taken over you and now I have your womb.
Yeah, a lot of womb talk in some of these paths.
So it is kind of funny that, I wonder, do you remember how you encountered that one? Because I like looked over some of the possible endings that I didn't do, but I don't remember which ones get you possessed, if that makes sense.
Finishing the notes is one that gets you possessed.
Yes.
The witch kills the priest and possesses you.
Yeah, so it turns out, by the way, there was the priest who was investigating, which, by the way, bone to pick with the priest. If he knew what was going on with you the entire time, why was he out there also accusing you of being a witch?
Yeah, he's a little asshole.
Totally an asshole. he also was getting into occult shit on his own in order to find these things out. So it wasn't like he was entirely blameless either. But yeah, when you confront the priest about what's going on, Saint Walpurga shows up, kills him, takes over your body, and then in a nice image that I enjoyed, abandons the red shoes. And so it like ends on the shoes with Elise/Walpurga walking away.
Okay, so there's a different ending where you can get possessed, and I believe it's when you give them not only, like, not good company, but also giving the wrong thing, like, not the bread or the blood water wine. If you make one of those wrong as well, I was just, like, playing with the different combinations, you end up getting, like, you get sucked into a tree with rosin marine when you try to do rosin marine, but you also, I think, get sucked into a tree, and then you're, like, in a beating womb, basically, of the tree, and then you get possessed by the old hag, who is, like, the Saint Walpurga.
Yeah.
You know, I also learned through doing my background, this is where I tend to put my Wikipedia reading hat on.
I was wondering, I wrote down, I was like, Annie, you're Catholic. Is this a real saint?
So I wouldn't have known this because of the Catholicism training, because we didn't read nearly enough about saints, which is way more fun and cool than you would think. But I did go look it up because I was curious. I was like, why does Walpurgisnacht show up in Madoka Magica? Like, what's the, like, background significance of this? This is all Saint Walpurga slander. Like she was fine and normal. Like, historically, she was a nun, associated with healing, like, all of this. She wasn't martyred. Like, she wasn't one of the, like, grisly murdered saints, but her feast time was associated with, like, the older, like, All Souls type times when, like, in, like, old Germany, like, witches are supposed to come out. Like, that's what Walpurgisnacht. Walpurgisnacht is a night when, like, witches have come out, like demons and other creatures, and then you are partying to keep them at bay. And so, again, Saint Walpurga, like, fine. Walpurgisnacht, on the other hand, named for her because she's, like, protecting you from the demons.
So just kind of, like, associated with it.
Yeah,
it kind of
got,
gets
like,
warped.
all mixed up.
Yeah.
So
that's fun.
Yes, it is fun. And I do enjoy that they, like, clearly did some research about it, though. Like, a lot of depictions of Saint Walpurga, like, show her holding grain because it's about, like, plenty and harvest time and whatnot. And there was a lot of, like, wheat sheaf stuff going on in this game as well. So, interesting. This is in defense of Saint
Annie,
Walpurga.
did you successfully romance a lady and take her into the woods? And what was your ending?
I did. I'm proud to say I did.
Congrats. At least somebody was successful at lesbianism and witchcraft. Two of the best things to do with your life.
Yeah, right. So I romanced Lebkuchen, as we've been talking about. By the way, the reason I chose her was because she was the only one who seemed to have a personality.
Yes, exactly why I chose her too.
Yeah,
she kind of like, she like
Elise
pushed back on you, which was fun.
Yeah, I did not find Rose and Marine's immediate, like, we belong together, Elise. By the way, this game is voice acted. I'm not just making that voice up. Like, part of it is voice acted, and that is what Rose and Marine sounds like, ish. I didn't like that. And her saying, we're fated, and oh my god, and she was really bad at cooking, and I didn't like that either.
You weren't looking forward to grape soup every night for the rest of your life?
No, I was not. So, and she was probably her biggest crime is not being able to keep her mouth shut about just being a complete and utter suspicious weirdo when you're just trying to earn enough money to, like, eat bread that day.
But she does come with a cool goat, so...
I did like the goat, but then the goat didn't do anything. I thought the goat would have more purpose.
The goat to do something.
Well, to be fair, the goat does do something at the very, very end, which neither of you guys achieved. So I will tell you about that. But I wish that the goat had been more interactive in some way. So anyway, didn't want to date Rose and Marine at all. Turns out she's the true ending date.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate. And then the third one, Freya... when I looked it up, because I didn't achieve her ending at all, because I did not romance her, it actually is like a lot more heart-wrenching than I thought it would be. But she seemed personality-less. She does give you a nice ointment, though, when the game begins.
And she is very strong. That's
Yes.
the one
She's
thing I know about her.
strong,
She's
which is great.
extremely strong.
That was like one of my favorite recurring bits in this game, was her just being like outrageously strong.
That was good, but no, I didn't date her. So I successfully romanced Lebkuchen. Apparently I accidentally picked all the right dialogue options, so I had enough hearts when you got to the end. And I didn't miss making the bread, so I made the bread, and I didn't miss making the drink of my blood. I forget the exact process for that one. Had those, put those in, you go to a cave, there's baskets. I put the items in the respective baskets, and then you get to a basket that is like, it represents your true love. And there's a doll representing your true love. So you pick that, and then you go further into the cave with your true love. So what happens when you do that is you end up in like the mirror world again through a tree, which shows you the riches that you have achieved. And then your love is taken from you by something, and the goat shows up. The goat shows up, little flock, and you follow him through the witching hour world into a dining hall with a stage at the end, and the goat transforms into him. It turns out he's been with you the entire time. Yeah. Sure. By the way, I don't know where they picked his name from, but it turns out the devil's name is Ozzy. Like, I can only think of either two things. Ozzy Osbourne or Ozymandias.
Yeah, Ozymandias is where my mind goes, but that's weird.
So I tried to look up if there were like certain like mythological or like Christian demons. Maybe Azrael is one that comes from, but I don't know. And he's like, you did it, you succeeded, thanks so much, let's have a chat and a bit of dinner before we get to the main event, or like the main course.
Are you eating Lebkuchen?
Oh, absolutely. So you're at a table with all of these golden girls, and a feast appears, and Ozzy is like, aren't you happy to have what you finally wanted? Like, thank you for doing all this work for us. We're so excited for what you brought us. And then from the stage appears the two other demons that you had to face to get here, who are the devil's lackeys, of course. And they have your love restrained there on the stage. So then Ozzy's like, and now for the main course. He transforms, he's all teeth, and they're clearly going in to eat Lebkuchen in front of you. First off, rude that you weren't invited to also devour Lebkuchen. I think that a little cannibalism never hurt anybody in these situations.
That would have been the true good ending for Annie. You get to do cannibalism.
However, no. Instead, Elise stands there dumbfounded while they begin to destroy her. In this case, Lebkuchen for me. So then you have a couple of options. You get a few dialogue chances. You have something that you can say where you're like, stop! Oh no! I didn't want it like this! Or you can just say nothing and you sit there as this like horrible tragedy happens in front of you. I chose to stay silent through all of those because
Annie.
it was so stupid to think that Elise didn't know that this is how it was going to end. Obviously you were bringing the good company to be a sacrifice. Every, 20 golden girls told you this, like before you got there, and then you're really telling me she's gonna have the gall?
I really am just picturing the golden girls every time you say that.
It was very frustrating to me that Elise could be at all surprised that this is what was going to happen, so that's why I chose to stay silent. I did experiment and go back and see what happens if you speak up. If you speak up, Ozzy is immediately like, you are so disappointing, and then just eats you and you become a golden girl instead. Which felt deserved. That's like like one of the pseudo endings. You don't get like an official ending for that. Then if you sit there and let them devour Lebkuchen, they turn to you and they're like, okay, like one more bit of the deal though. If you want to secure all of the fortune, like everything else that you did up to this point was just to get an audience with me, the final thing is that you have to promise me your firstborn child. And then I can promise you this, like, life of luxury. And Elise always negotiate, girls. At least Elise has the good sense to say, what about my second-born child? And the devil's like, A-okay with me.
Deal.
So your love gets obliterated in front of you, and then the compulsory heterosexuality sets in. The bad ending
I was
is
gonna
not...
say, you need to have a child with someone.
The bad ending is not only does your girlfriend get eaten by the devil and his lackeys in front of you. After that, the way you achieve a life of luxury is the prince from the faraway castle that you've been seeing comes to spirit you away and wants to marry you. So you marry the prince or the duke, he might be a duke. And then in the end, Elise ends up getting pregnant, having a child, and then she's like, okay, great, I get to have a child and I won't have any more. It's twins. The devil always wins. And so then she has this child where she's trying to decide what to do.
Why did Elise even, negotiate? Because at no point has she indicated that she would enjoy or want to be a mother.
Yeah. That does not seem to be her path.
Par for the course. I don't know. Again, very Catholic game. But then, of course, again, also, at least the Lebkuchen bad ending, because there's more to it. So she has this child, and the devil takes the second child, and then she repents and weeps bitterly and becomes a nun, and then in her dying days, she sees Lebkuchen to take her away to heaven. So she did all of that, and for what is really the ending for the bad ending.
It's crazy to, Lebkuchen, letting Lebkuchen go didn't lead her to, cry, repent, and become a nun, but, her, random second child who, she never indicated at any point that she would want. There's a lot about fertility, wombs, birth, which I like in some case. I think it's a fun and rich space to play in, but I don't like the way it ultimately comes out in this game, which just seems like it's the most important thing to any woman is to give birth to a child, and
well, it is the bad end.
That's the most important thing to Elise.
I'll push back on that. It was the very clearly demarcated bad ending that happened.
Okay.
Because everyone has a good ending as well.
Yes. So on the other hand, the good ending for Lebkuchen, the way you achieve that is in the moment where you need to offer up. So before you even get into the witchy shit, you never see Ozzy if you turn away at this point. At the point where you offer up the good company, aka your girlfriend, you have the option to not do it. So there's the real pivotal moment of the game. That's where it actually branches.
Does it tell you what is that choice? Is it just putting something else in that place, or do you offer her up and then get a choice to recant that?
I forget exactly. You can put the thing in the basket and then start moving forward, and then it says something are you sure? And then you can say no. Either way, the result of that is then Elise turning to Lebkuchen, and then she's like, you know what, Lebkuchen? No, this sucks. Let's get out of here. And Lebkuchen is like, why'd you take me into the woods again? Is this all you wanted me to see? And Elise is like, yeah, don't worry about it. Lebkuchen never finds out what you were doing this entire goddamn time. And then you go back out into the town. Lebkuchen decides to not be a nun anymore, and then you go travel, but ultimately Lebkuchen and Elise come back to Kieferberg. There's some beautiful artwork depicting all of this. Elise puts her hair in a ponytail and gets to wear pants, which is a very good look for her. And then she becomes mayor of Kieferberg. I also, again, this was depicted as a very good ending. You and Lebkuchen live happily ever after together. There's no mention of children.
Our lesbian
The thing I
mayors.
didn't like about that,
Our lesbian mayors.
Basically. And the only thing I didn't like about that is that everyone in Kieferberg was so mean to you. I think it's a bad ending for them to stay there at all. But other than that, very beautiful ending. So yes, that was everything that I achieved. It didn't feel like a huge achievement at that point because I was sitting there well, what about Freya? By the way, all the endings have really incredible names, actually. If you fully betray Lebkuchen and you go for bad ending, it's called Judas's Kiss. Which I think is...
Treacherous Rose is
great.
One that you can get, which is fun.
Yeah.
I ended up watching all of the endings because
Nice.
so the ending that I got was one where you get burned at the stake.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, if you just don't have anyone who you reach good company status with, you get burned at the stake. So I was like, well,
besides Rosin-Marine. So I took Rosin-Marine in, and I didn't have good enough hearts with anyone. And when you take Rosin-Marine in, you both get locked in like an embrace in the tree.
Yes, I did. There was this might have been the one that I actually really like, where maybe there's one of them where if you go in with a Rosin-Marine and you don't fulfill some of the requirements, she is like, oh, I understand now. It wasn't me who was supposed to bring you here. It was you guiding me here. And she like grabs you and pulls you into the tree as like a way of like her like deciding that is your fate. I thought that was a really cool, like dark ending.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just got burned at the stake. But I don't know. I did like all of the endings are all really interesting. I like that it was not just like a small variant on the same thing with just like a different sprite or whatever. Like everyone's ending is totally unique. And I do think like the good endings are, while like you said, some a little bit like nonsensical, like why would you want to stay there? They are all Elise deciding that she would rather like have the love of her life than the fortune. And it just like, it just feels like the end of like a romance anime in the way that like it really should. Yeah. Like the moral of the story is, don't listen to what men want you to do. Just be gay with your friends instead. And that's the way to have a good life.
It is a good ending. It's like a truly beautiful ending. A lot of like wish fulfillment involved, which I
they're just
really
like so gorgeous. Like there's all this great art that is unique to them and everything. Like they're really cool. Yeah,
I didn't watch the endings, but I did look at the ending like art for each of them, and I really particularly also love the Rosin-Marine like fireflies. They're like laying in a field together with all the glowing around them, and it's really sweet.
It's great.
I also enjoyed, so since we're talking about endings, it turns out that the true ending is betraying Rosin-Marine, bringing her there, betraying her, and then I had written down before I looked any of that up, I had written down, if I sacrificed Rosin-Marine, she'd probably be like, yay! Because she was talking the whole time about how she was destined for this.
Yeah.
And she is, but what I really like then is, what then happens is she actually starts to falter as they start tearing into her. She starts like crying for her grandma and stuff, and Elise just sits and watches and lets it happen. But that's the true ending, because then she goes and marries a duke and has children, and then wants to protect her second child, so she goes to Lebkuchen and asks for her religious help, and Lebkuchen gives her a device called the pocket mirror to give to her daughter when she grows up, and then that daughter grows up to be the protagonist of Pocket Mirror, their previous game. In dating sims in general, there's usually like a prince or princess character that is like clearly the main character that's also the most difficult to romance, and the others are kind of like options that rotate around that main character. So if Rosin-Marine was the princess character of this game, I wish they'd made her a little more appealing to like encourage you to choose that option. But yeah. Rosin-Marine's the one true girlfriend, apparently.
I mean, she was interesting because of the fatedness stuff, but like as a character, not that interesting, other than her great dress.
Yeah.
So still the true, I mean, you're pushing back against the fertility thing, but still the true ending is go off, marry a man,
the true
give birth to your children and protect them.
The true ending of this horror game is horrific. Yes. That is what happens. So how did you guys feel after all of that? Especially having reached kind of quote unquote like fail states.
I felt like it fucking sucked. Not the game, to be clear, I'm not saying that the game.
Please elaborate.
Like, I just, I ended it and I was like, well, that sucks, because I was like, I want to know more about these different endings, and I don't have the time or the desire to do another full playthrough, and the best I can do is see the other fail states with the other girls, and like in that case it is basically just swapping out the character for Lebkuchen and Freya when you get burned at the stake, and like I was just like, this is such a letdown of like, I like pushed through this thing and there were some things that I liked so much about it. And then it was just like, I feel so, yeah, locked out. Because I was like, that's such a, a bummer. I wanted to like end it and be like, oh, all of these threads that like these interesting threads that showed up were like explored. And I actually, looking back on it, like, I saw how this mechanic reinforced the narrative and like blah, 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 blah. And instead I was like, oh, I guess that's it.
Yeah, I did feel like there was a lot left unexplored, especially with the Walpurga stuff and the Fireflies, you know, the Golden Girls, whatever. I just feel like they could have done something to make that come together a bit more in the end. And especially, yeah, I got the ending and I was like, man, that was depressing. Like, it really bummed me out. But like, having watched the other endings, it does make me... I do still like the game as a whole. Like, the story you can get if you get one of the good endings, I think is really wonderful. And I think, like, despite not liking the mechanics of the game at all, I really like it. Like, it is like better in my memory than it was as an experience to play, largely because of that aesthetic stuff. And I also just like, I really admire how off the wall a lot of choices it makes are. Like we said, like all of that kind of changing the visual style and just how grotesque and like horrific it gets at some points. Like all of the horse violence in particular was really rough. And even like some of the mechanical stuff, like the hunger and work stuff, was like just so many big swings. And I would just rather see a game make weird, unexpected, sometimes messy choices than do what you expect. Like, I feel like it's so often you can go into a game and just kind of know exactly what you're getting. And this game, I had no idea what I was getting at any point. And I just really... I would rather have that experience than one where I kind of like know what's going to happen and get bored about it.
It's way more interesting than most games I've played recently.
Just from your description, you're making me feel good about it again, even though I still am so mad about how frustrating so much of it was.
Yeah.
Even again with the endings as well. Like, I don't want to go back and go through it all and have the dates with Freya or Rose and Marine because it didn't feel worth it for that pain.
That is one thing that does annoy me is, you know, I can go and watch all of the ending cutscenes and like experience those, but I do wish I could go back and just have the dates with the other girls just to see what their stories were and see if like they become more interesting at that. Like, not even just difficult to get this other ending, is like they are just different playthroughs you would have to do. And I think, I don't know, that's always a bummer, I think, for a game with multiple endings that doesn't give you a good way to do it. And especially one like this that is so long and so frustrating, it's just like not going to happen.
No. Are there any games with multiple endings that you guys can think of that you think does that very well? And I know that, of course, we could talk about like bigger like RPGs like Baldur's Gate 3 that like give you a lot of time to work through that stuff, but more in this scope. But I mean, you said yes immediately. Like, which one are you thinking of?
Yeah, because I was thinking about it a lot. Slay the Princess.
Oh, yeah.
I think like it's a really simple change, which is that Slay the Princess has way more save slots. So like,
I know,
that's also true.
Yeah.
Much easier to like go back to those crucial moments, and it was like very clear what the save slots are. And it's also that the pristine cut that has the additional, like, it makes it really clear how many endings you've unlocked and like the branching points. But I think having like clearer save states and more save states would have made it so that like and they tell you this, they're like, oh, you're probably going to want to use all your save slots. But the way I interpreted that was just like, I just always had a running list of like 20 that I looped back around through. And so I still wasn't able to go back to the beginning versus...
Yeah, same.
So I think because it's like a huge number of save slots for Slay the Princess, I could revisit at any point, and it makes it a lot easier to like go through. And it's also a much shorter playthrough as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the gameplay itself is collect endings.
Right.
Yes, yeah.
And you're also making choices at the very end that affect the ending, as opposed to like, I made a choice 6 hours ago that means this is the ending I'm going to get.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's ultimately the frustrating thing, where it's like, I didn't realize how much I was locking off for myself through choices I kind of didn't feel like I had a lot of information about at the time. Yeah, I don't know. And I'm trying to think of ones that have like some mechanical thing that makes that easier, and I'm not really. I don't know. I feel like I don't play a ton of games that are about the branching paths. Like, I play a lot of visual novels, but they're not so much about like collecting endings.
For me, I actually think of, and maybe it's because this is a moment where it's like, guy who's only seen Boss Baby sees his second movie, but for me, the epitome of this is 999 Virtue's Last Reward. Have either of you played this?
I know what it is, but I haven't played it.
999 is the originally for the DS, like, visual horror novel with a bunch of different endings, and that one you had to iterate through it, because, like, when you die, you go back to the start and you can try again and make different choices. Virtue's Last Reward perfected that formula for me because it made like an actual like branching path of the choices and made it easier to go back to the point where like the fork in the road essentially and say, okay, well now I'll make the other choice here and then continue onward. And I really liked having the map of the forks in the road basically of where you could go just built into the game itself.
Yeah. I'm trying to think now, because I know I have played some games that have that visual representation and let you go back to certain points on that map. I think that's a good system. I know our friend Shu really likes the 100 line, Last Defense Academy, which is a game about collecting endings, and it makes it, like, it's a very long game, but it makes it easy to, like, you know where that branch is.
It's also by the 999 guy.
Yes. I would also say, I mean, maybe even something like Citizen Sleeper, which is a game where you definitely can lock yourself out of endings early on, but you can definitely get to a point where when you get to the end of that game, you've made a lot of choices that have given you a lot of different paths you could follow, and only in the at the very end, it will tell you very clearly, like, you're about to make a choice that's going to kind of lock you out of things, which I think if you're going to have that kind of mechanical, closing off of paths is good to know.
I'm looking at my notebook in case I had something more to say on this topic, but mostly I'm just now looking at my my little asides, like witchery / the devil is like a multi-level marketing scheme. Which is, I think, partly my main takeaway from this, which is that, yes, like, you're going to pass down that curse.
Yeah.
For the fortune you seek.
Yeah. You should just go run away with your girlfriend instead.
I have one more like tidbit to put before you guys, and then I feel I'm done talking about this game.
Okay.
Wilma the Innkeeper.
Oh my God.
I'm so glad that we returned to it.
Why can't we date her?
Well, she's like 20 years older than you, yeah.
And not a child.
And
we don't know how old Elise is.
I do want the spin-off.
Wilma, not Wilma, right?
Right.
Well, Elise's thing is she always gets people's names wrong. So I forget which one is her real name. Her mom is
Wilma, and then Welma is like her daughter that works in the inn.
Yeah, Welma. Sorry, that's what I mean. Yeah. Welma, who's at the inn. Her.
Yeah. I do want a spin-off where you play as, like, one of the other women in town and just romance her.
Yeah.
She was, as soon as I saw her, I was like, all right, I love this game.
I was like, please, like, what do you mean I have to date these other losers?
And she's always in there like, oh, I'm so bored. Like,
she's always hitting on you.
And she's always like, yeah, there is a little, I don't know. She's like, are you sure
you don't need anything else?
She always talks about how lonely she is. And I literally wrote down, I can help you be less lonely, Wilma.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, she literally says, are you sure that's all, sweetheart?
I know. I was like melting.
It's like, please. Did you guys get into Welma's shed either? It seemed locked, and that was an eternal mystery to me. Yeah. And so I never looked that up or followed up.
There were a lot of things here that felt like they should have been something that weren't. Like, your garden never comes up again. There's like the oven in the backyard.
I thought there was going to be a whole gardening, like,
I know, me
mechanic.
Too. I thought I was going to be able to bake bread
bummer.
myself so that I didn't have to keep paying for it in town and doing chores.
Yeah. No. Again, a different game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There is some stuff in it that feels like they considered adding it, and then they were just like, we've done enough.
Which is fair. They did indeed do enough.
Making a game seems hard.
Time to get back to Pocket Mirror.
Do you guys think you'll play Pocket Mirror one day?
I don't know. I'm curious now.
I'm going to let you satisfy the curiosity. I think, for me, I want to wait for their next game. Because I want to see if they iron out the wrinkles.
Yes, I am looking up Astral Shift now because I would be
model.
curious in seeing like what they do after this, because this does seem to be quite a bit bigger than anything else they've done.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'll follow that art team to the end of the earth.
Oh my god, yeah, totally.
So I think that's pretty much it for Little Goody Two Shoes. Any final thoughts before I list us out?
Interesting game, great art. If you have a high frustration tolerance, I would probably recommend it.
Yeah. Agreed. Some things that it does incredibly well.
Yes.
That I absolutely love, and some spots where it falls a little short of what I hoped it would be.
Yeah. I'm a big lover of like the 7 out of 10 game, and I just a few rough edges somewhere are nice sometimes. And to be clear, this has more than a few rough edges, but it's again like I'd always take like weird and messy and interesting over boring and polished. So
yeah, I agree.
Well, thank you, Robin, for joining us on this episode of Emmi and Annie Talk Indie.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yay.
And thank you. We could go back and forth.
And
thank you. And thank you for... we'll get into our wrap-up stuff as well after this. But for now, anybody who's listening, make sure you follow Robin on Blue Sky and also me and Robin on Twitch because we stream on Wednesdays most of the time. We'll put links to that in the description. And make sure you also listen to Girl Mode with Robin Bea and Willa Bloomfield-Rowe.
Okay, let's talk about upcoming games. Last episode, I talked about a bunch of games coming out on May 28th, and I have one more game to talk about that is coming out on May 28th, and that is Map Map, a game about maps. And I don't really know what to tell you that isn't already in the title. It's Map Map, a game about maps, where you explore areas and map them. Which I think is a fun reversal of the usual way maps are used in games. However, that said, I don't really know how much the idea of the gameplay actually appeals to me, but I'm intrigued enough by it to want to find out whether I'll like it or not.
Oh, it's single player. That's too bad.
Oh, it would be... I would imagine it would be a really fun co-op game. Maybe they'll do an update that is co-op.
Yeah, if they could add co-op, that'd be awesome because it looks like the type of thing I would want to stream with Robin, if possible.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I will recommend to my sister who loves a map in a fantasy game. So this would appeal directly to her interests.
The next game I wanted to talk about is called Lost in Art, a miniature realm. It releases June 1st. The trailer made me think of Death of the Reprobate because it also uses like real historical artwork. You step into different paintings and solve puzzles in them to explore. It's just a very cool style, and I love the inclusion of art history. It looks like the developers are based in Turkey and are interested in Anatolian history. It's very cool looking and looks like it probably would be pretty short.
Yeah, it looks illuminated. I like that.
Yeah. Next one, I don't usually call out early access releases in upcoming games, but I'm very intrigued by this one, and I wanted to make sure to touch on it. Odd Fauna is the game. It comes to early access June 2nd. It's an exploration and crafting game where you encounter and befriend creatures, and the creatures are all hand sculpted by the creators. The developers are a husband and wife team where Emma Sancardier has been sculpting all these creatures like for years as her artwork, and her husband is a technical artist on like animated films and AAA games, and so they decided to make a game for these creatures to live in. So it's got a very cool kind of like stop motion-y look to them because all of these creatures are based on sculptures that she's created in like the physical world.
I love the creatures. I love these little creatures. Were you following the artist anywhere before you found out about the game? Because these do look like the type of creatures that you would have on your shelf already.
Absolutely they do, and I don't think so, and I'm excited to follow her just as an artist because they absolutely look like creatures that I would have on my bookshelf. Okay, last one is Solar Punk. I remember seeing a Solar Punk trailer, like, perhaps years ago and being intrigued by it, and it is coming out on June 8th. Solar Punk is a survival game that can be played both single player or co-op, set on a series of floating islands with advanced technology. So you can build, grow crops, and craft technology. But based on some of the trailers and images I've seen from it, it seems like there's a big focus on building and a lot of support for like really in-depth construction.
It does look like something that would be fun for me and Robin to stream, but I have like no patience for building in that way. And so I would probably get bored because I don't know how to entertain myself in that environment.
Yeah,
it looks really
too.
nice.
I'm like, I would like to live in like a world that people who are really good at this have created. Same way I like using, like in The Sims, I like downloading creator content of houses people have built, but I don't have the patience. Because also my houses always turn out ugly because I don't understand architecture, I think.
Well, my issue with those types of games is I always want to make like a blueprint first. And because I feel the need to get out my notebook and plan out how things are going to look first. I can't just do it on the fly in the game. So it turns into a whole thing. But I'm also looking at it going, oh, I'm getting a lot of like Squirreled Away vibes from this, which is, having played only one game that's a sandbox where you craft and build a treehouse. It looks fun.
Girl who played a lot of Squirreled Away.
Exactly.
It's just like it. Yeah. I do think like the style of it is cool and why I was interested in it when I saw that trailer like years ago. I feel like often survival crafting games are either kind of like medieval, like fantasy kind of, or are just very generic, cozy, cutesy. And this, I think, is cool from, like, a very technologically advanced, but not really in a sci-fi way either. So, I just think the style of it is a little interesting. And the setting.
Sweet.
That's it for me. I think I'm probably most excited about Odd Fauna. I hope it will be... Yeah, we'll see if I can access it in early access on my Steam Deck or what that will look like.
And if that's everything, I think we can wrap up the episode.
Yes. Every time I forget, we have to say bye.
There's presumably other people listening, Emmy. That's the thing.
Yes. Goodbye.
Bye for now. Thank you for listening.